The future of Mitch Marner with the Toronto Maple Leafs is one of the hottest topics this offseason, with growing speculation that the Leafs will prioritize re-signing captain John Tavares over extending Marner's contract. All eyes are on what Toronto's next move will be, and whether Marner could be heading to free agency or even traded before July 1st. If you enjoy staying up to date with all the latest NHL news and Maple Leafs updates, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep bringing you the best hockey content. Insider suggests likely Mitch Marner scenario for Maple Leafs ahead of free agency. The future of Mitch Marner with the Toronto Maple Leafs appears increasingly uncertain, as the team is reportedly set to focus on extending captain John Tavares' contract over retaining Marner this offseason. According to NHL insider David Pagnotta, there is a growing expectation that Marner will enter free agency on July 1st. However, the analyst also floated a less discussed, intriguing possibility. In a May 30th article for the fourth period, Pagnotta offered insight into Toronto's internal deliberations regarding their two veteran forwards. At this point, extending Tavares seems far more likely than working out a new deal with Marner, Pagnotta reported. All signs are pointing towards Marner heading to free agency. While Marner hasn't completely ruled out a return to Toronto, he is reportedly eager to explore other opportunities. Tavares, meanwhile, who signed a 7-year, $77 million contract back in 2018, has been vocal about his desire to remain a Maple Leaf. The Leafs are expected to propose a lower-value contract to Tavares, with negotiations anticipated to gain momentum in the near future. As for Marner, Pagnotta indicated that his list of preferred destinations has been narrowed down to a select few clubs, primarily in the Western Conference, with the Los Angeles Kings and Vegas Golden Knights among the teams mentioned. "I don't believe they're unclear about where things stand with Mitch Marner and John Tavares. Of course they know," Pagnotta commented, referring to general manager Brad Treliving. Perhaps the most compelling scenario raised by Pagnotta involves the possibility of Toronto moving Marner's negotiating rights ahead of free agency. While a sign-and trade is viewed as unlikely, there is speculation that the Maple Leafs could trade his rights for a draft pick before July 1st, giving another team a head start in contract discussions. Could the Leafs move his rights for a draft pick to give another club an advantage in negotiating? Pagnotta pondered. That option seems more plausible. The future of Mitch Marner with the Toronto Maple Leafs is one of the hottest topics this offseason, with growing speculation that the Leafs will prioritize re-signing captain John Tavares over extending Marner's contract. All eyes are on what Toronto's next move will be, and whether Marner could be heading to free agency or even traded before July 1st. Before we dive deep into all the details, rumors, and possible scenarios, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NHL updates, trade rumors, and in-depth analyses. Your support means everything and helps us keep creating quality hockey content for you. So, here's what we know. NHL insider David Pagnotta recently reported that an extension for John Tavares is far more likely at this point than for Mitch Marner. In fact, all indications are that Marner is heading towards unrestricted free agency when the market opens on July 1st. But that's not all. Pagnotta also presented a lesser discussed but very interesting possibility involving a potential trade of Marner's negotiating rights before free agency officially begins. In this video, we're going to break it all down. What's happening with Tavares and Marner, the Leafs' internal strategy, the possible destinations for Marner, and what a sign-and-trade or rights trade could look like. Let's start with John Tavares. The Leafs captain signed a massive 7-year, $77 million deal back in 2018. He's now entering the final stretch of that contract and has made it very clear he wants to stay in Toronto. Reports indicate that the Maple Leafs are preparing to offer him a contract extension, likely at a lower annual value to help with their cap situation. Negotiations between the Leafs front office and Tavares' camp are expected to pick up speed in the coming weeks. Tavares brings leadership, consistency, and, of course, strong offensive production, even as he ages. From a team-building perspective, it makes sense for the Leafs to try to keep him, especially at a more team-friendly price. So, all signs point to Tavares staying put. But now, let's shift to the more complex and dramatic situation, Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner, at 27 years old, is still in the prime of his career. He's one of the most dynamic two-way forwards in the NHL, known for his elite playmaking, defensive responsibility, and ability to contribute in all situations. However, the reality is that his contract, with a $10.9 million cap hit, is a significant burden for the Leafs as they try to reshape their roster after yet another disappointing playoff exit. According to Pagnotta, it is becoming increasingly unlikely that Toronto will be able to, or even attempt to, extend Marner this offseason. The current expectation is that he will head to free agency on July 1st. That said, it's important to note that Marner has not shut the door on returning to Toronto. Sources suggest that he is still open to staying, but he wants to fully explore his options and see what kind of offers are out there. Now, let's talk about potential landing spots. Pagnotta has mentioned that Marner's list of preferred destinations has been narrowed to just a few teams, most of them based in the Western Conference. Two franchises that stand out are the Los Angeles Kings, a team that is looking to add more elite offensive talent as they transition to being serious cup contenders, and the Vegas Golden Knights, always aggressive in the trade and free agency markets, known for pursuing star players and making bold moves. Both teams have the cap flexibility and competitive outlook that could appeal to Marner. Of course, other teams could jump into the mix depending on how the offseason develops, but these two are reportedly the front-runners at this point. Here's where things get really interesting. Pagnotta suggested that while a sign-and-trade is technically possible, it's seen as unlikely in this situation due to the complexities involved, both in negotiating a new contract and working out fair trade compensation. However, there is a more plausible scenario. The Maple Leafs could look to trade Marner's negotiating rights before July 1st. This would allow another team to get an exclusive window to negotiate with Marner before he hits the open market. In return, the Leafs could secure a draft pick or another asset, ensuring they get something for a player they might otherwise lose for nothing. This kind of move has been seen before in the NHL, though it's relatively rare. Still, it could be a strategic play by Toronto's GM Brad Treliving to recoup some value, while also giving clarity to the team's off-season plans. Pagnotta posed the question himself. Could the Leafs trade his rights for a draft pick to give a team a head start in contract negotiations? That seems more plausible. And honestly, it does. If the Leafs do move on from Marner, it would signal a significant shift in their core philosophy. For years, the so-called Core Four of Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and John Tavares has defined this team. But after multiple early playoff exits, many have argued that it's time for Toronto to shake things up. Trading Marner, or losing him in free agency, would free up significant cap space and potentially allow the Leafs to address other areas of need, such as defense, goaltending, or bottom six depth. On the other hand, losing a player of Marner's caliber is never easy. He's a fan favorite, a hometown hero, and one of the most skilled players in the NHL. The decision facing Brad Treliving and the Leafs front office is monumental. Do they stick with the current core and hope for different results, or do they finally break it up and take the franchise in a new direction? Let's quickly summarize the most likely scenarios. First, Marner hits free agency and signs with another team. Leafs lose him for nothing. Second, Leafs trade Marner's negotiating rights before July 1st for a draft pick or other asset. Third, a last-minute extension is somehow reached with Toronto, though this appears unlikely based on current reports. And fourth, a sign-and-trade occurs, allowing Marner to get a max-term contract and the Leafs to receive trade compensation, but again, seen as improbable. So, what do you think? Should the Leafs prioritize re-signing Marner, or is it time to move on and reshape the roster? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our NHL news, analysis, and trade rumors.